Well, so I did do the retreat for Nativity. I was actually only a year older than Stephanie when I did that retreat. And actually, Stephanie and I, for a semester, were at Holy Family together. So I was at Holy Family for a year and a half, and then I became a trader. I left and went to Erie High School. I won't make the joke why. But during my time here, I had some encounters that were very enjoyable. I had some encounters that weren't very enjoyable. And I have stories from some teachers that are still here. I won't share those. They're not, I don't think, in this room, but to be better safe than sorry. I did have a teacher. She had a very thick Southern drawl. And my freshman year, she said, we get a quiet period where we had to do whatever we wanted. And like any freshman, all of you being freshmen at some point, I decided to use it as wisely as I possibly could. Any student athlete would. I took a nap because that just seemed like the best option. While I was taking a nap, she yelled at me from across the room saying, "Mr. Evard, are you talking?" And I'm like, now I've asked my wife this for about 5 years now, even though we've only been married for 3. Do I talk in my sleep? She told me no, I just snore. So I didn't think I was talking in her class, so I decided to put my head back down and fall back asleep. And I found out that when my teacher got angry, my name has 2 E's and 2 V's in it, and she just would like add 9 more when she got angry at me. And she goes, "Mr. Evard, are you talking in my class?" I'm like, "I'm not. I'm trying to sleep, actually. I really need the rest." The people who were talking that were next to me started defending me, saying, "He's not actually talking. This is totally not him." Didn't matter. She sent me to the hallway. And Mr. Gummerlock, does he still teach here? All right. Awesome guy, comes up to me. And a little freshman, terrified in the hallway, he goes, "What'd you do?" And in my manliest freshman voice, I went, "I have no idea." Like crying. I'm like, "I don't know why I'm out here." And so he's like, "Well, we'll go down to the office and you can apologize later. It's going to be okay." So I did. I apologized to the teacher, and I was very sincere, and I said, "I just really don't know what happened." And I still got detention for 2 weeks. I was like, really? Like, how? Sometimes you just don't know why things happen. Suffering just kind of happens. And I learned a valuable lesson that day. Don't take naps in your class. Doesn't matter if you're sleep tight. You're going to get in trouble anyways. The thing for me about suffering is everywhere, right? I have had multiple people tell me high schoolers don't suffer. Just noticing reaction of what? I genuinely believe everyone suffers, whether you are a freshman in high school, whether you are a 34-year-old married person. We all suffer. We all struggle with it. Whether it's not making the varsity spot you wanted, or not getting the role you wanted, being broken up with, or having to break up with someone, failing at something, or losing someone. We have suffering everywhere. The fact of the matter is, how do we react to that suffering? How do you respond? We can just look at Scripture. Matthew 10:38. Whoever does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. That stood with me for a very long time. And when I was 22 years old, I didn't take up that cross. See, I had parents who were both very devout Catholics. My mom was actually a national speaker. She would travel the entire country speaking at different events. How many of you have ever heard of Steubenville of the Rockies, the Sikh Conference, NCYC, or World Youth Day? Has everybody heard of those? My mom and my dad both spoke at those. Like, they were very well known. My dad was a local youth minister all over the Boulder area before he betrayed us and went to All Souls down in Denver. My life was going to Mass, was going to youth group, was living in this Catholic family. And I realized even we were susceptible to falling. At 23 years old, my parents got divorced. I was not ready for it. I wasn't ready for the emotions that were going to come from seeing my family broken apart. And from everyone I've talked to, it didn't matter if I was 5 years old or 50 years old. Divorce sucks. It's ugly. No one wins. I've had people say I was in the worst worst marriage, and I'm still heartbroken because of what it did to my family. And so I decided to be done with all that. I left the Catholic Church. I stopped attending Mass. I stopped praying. And I sought out any way I could to numb how I was feeling. It just felt like that would be the best way. And during that time, I fell deeper and deeper into the darkness, deeper and deeper into sorrow. I was very hopeless, and I was very lonely. And during that, I got to the point where I was done. I was done with life. I had hit rock bottom, and I saw no way out. And it was my dad, the day of that rock bottom feeling, who tells me, I think God is calling you to pray. Me, who hadn't prayed at the time in 3 years, hadn't gone to Mass in 3 years, didn't think of Jesus in my life at all. And he's telling me to pray, so I did. And magically, nothing happened in that moment. Because that's not how it works. But what I did notice is I began to slowly realize what God was trying to do in my life. Right? It wasn't just going to happen that first moment I prayed, but as I prayed the next day, and the next day, and the next day, I began to see what God was trying to show me. I began to feel what God was trying to let me feel for the first time in 3 years. All those emotions that I had shoved down, God was allowing me to feel that, to embrace that, and to suffer with that. Right? Our hearts tear every time we fall into suffering. And the reason is so that God can enter into each of those holes, each of those spots, and fill it so that you can be more saint-like. And he was doing that with me in that moment. And let me tell you this. It took me years to truly heal from all of that, to truly embrace that suffering, to go through it all. I started going to therapy. I started meeting with a priest where he was praying with me every week, allowing me to just get closer. And the biggest thing is I was praying and I was asking Jesus to be in every moment. Not just every moment of my day, but every moment from my past. Asking him to fill the room. Asking him every time I had sinned in that 3-year span that he was present. And he was, and he showed me that. I realized that my suffering of this cross, of this struggle, was making me who I wanted to be, was bringing me closer to the saints. And then I found 1 Peter 4:13. But rejoice to the extent that you share in the sufferings of Christ, so that when his glory is revealed, you may also rejoice exultantly. I desired that. I desire that today. I want to be more like Christ. I want to be closer. And so I prayed for that strength, that the next time such an intense suffering would come my way, that such a heavy cross would come my way, that I would be ready, that he would help me with it, and that I would embrace it, and I would take that cross up. Unexpectedly, 10 years after my parents' divorce, the biggest cross I've taken in my life happened. Earlier this year, I went to Boston, and my wife and I, at the time, we were just engaged. We were looking at Boston as a place that we wanted to move. We were really excited. We loved it. Everything about it was so exciting for us. And my dad is a huge Boston Celtics fan. So, of course, I had to get him a gift. I'm in Boston. I don't do that all the time. And so I got him, for those who know who Larry Bird is, I got him a Larry Bird jersey and shirt. I was going to go bring it back, and I was so excited. I was excited to share that with my dad and to share about my trip. And so when I got home, I went into his room. I was ready to tell him everything. But unfortunately, I found my father on the floor. He had passed away. Every emotion you can think of, I felt. I felt immense sadness. I screamed, "Why, God? Why, God? Why?" I felt pain. I felt alone. My dad was my mentor. He was the one who pulled me out. He was my best friend. He was the best example of a good Catholic, someone who loved their faith. I didn't know how to take this cross on. I didn't know how I was going to handle this suffering. I had failed 10 years prior, and this felt so much worse. And God showed me. In that moment, I called my fiance, I called my brother, and I called a priest, Father Daniel Chucci, to join me. And as we sat there, just trying to figure out what to do, how do we handle these emotions? How do we handle these feelings? I couldn't get over finding my father. And so Father Daniel said, we're going for a ride. And he took me to a church, and he had me go into adoration, and he said, place Jesus in the room with your father. Okay. So I did. I placed Jesus in that room with my dad, sitting there weeping in adoration before Jesus, before his flesh and blood. And I just said, what do you want from this, God? What do you want from me, God? And he answered me. Because in that moment, my father stood up and he walked with Jesus. And I felt such peace. And I felt such joy and such an embrace that I had never felt. Because I realized what God was trying to tell me was it was going to be okay. It doesn't change the fact of all the feelings I had. It doesn't change the fact of losing my father here on earth with me. But then God kept saying, come to me, come to me. I will show you. And he did. And he has every day since. See, because it wasn't just that my father's death impacted me and my family, it impacted so many that I got to witness people coming back to the Catholic Church, gone for years. They showed up to the funeral and they said, I got to come back here. This is home. Your dad taught me that. I began to see people telling stories about my father, sharing them everywhere, going out and doing things that my dad used to do. My dad would just buy everybody a meal all the time. And people were telling me, that inspired me. I went out and I bought someone a meal today. I saw the graces that were coming from this, and I saw why I needed to embrace this suffering, because the fruits were so beautiful for so many people, and most importantly, for me. You see, my prayer life changed that day. I prayed every day since then. I don't miss prayer. I panic if I'm about to go to bed because I'm like, I got to make sure I get prayer in because it's so important. I realized how much I had to trust in God, trust in what he was doing, and not only in my life, but in the people's lives of who I wanted to help, in my family, in my friends, and all the people that had told me they wanted to come back to church. That I would trust that God was going to work. And finally, maybe the most important for me, I realized how important the Mass is, the Eucharist. That when I showed up to Mass for the first time after my father's death, I truly felt he was in the room with me again, that I was reunited with him, because this is heaven on earth. This is the beauty, and it happens right here. And being in the presence where Jesus becomes flesh and blood, and hearing my Father's voice saying, this is what I've been telling you, that changed everything. Mass became so beautiful, so necessary, so needed. I am closer to Christ than I have been in my entire life. I feel closer to being able to call myself one day in heaven a saint, knowing that I still have to work each and every day for that. That it's not just going to be, well, I got here. That for the next 34 years, I will strive for that. And I thank Christ daily for this cross. Doesn't mean I don't miss my Father. I miss him every day. I talk to him every day. But I have a new joy and a new hope that one day I will be reunited with him, that I will walk with him again, embrace him again. So I rejoice, and I pray that I am ready for my next cross. Thank you.